Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop, and this is my performance review of the Nike GT Hustle 2. So this is basically the second iteration of the GT Run line. I don't know why they changed up the name. So they have 3 shoes in the GT lineup by Nike, and the GT line stands for greater than, and it's there to kind of replace the Hyperdunk line. You guys remember the Hyperdunks? I very much miss that line. I wish they would bring it back. And remember they had the Elite versions as well. And also I wish Nike would bring back Elite models. You guys remember that? I definitely do miss that. But anyways, this is the Nike GT Hustle 2 and it retails for 170 bucks. So if you guys do want to cop, I try to leave the link in the description box. There are some dope colorways out. This is probably the worst colorway in my personal opinion. I don't know why I got this one. There is this white one that did come out as well, which looks really dope. So again, links will be in the description box, but let's get it started right off with the Tracciones. And in this colorway, we pretty much have a fully translucent outsole with the middle having like these solid black rubber nubby things, and we have a mix of it's like a waffle pattern they say, but it's just herringbone with some circles kind of protruding out, right? And there are a good amount of spaces in between it, which isn't the best for durability, of course, because there's not as much surface area. However, it's actually pretty hard as far as the rubber goes, right? So if you are playing on an outdoor court, I feel like it'll be pretty good because the rubber is pretty hard. So you should be covered on an outdoor court. And how does it perform on an indoor court, right? So if you're playing on a clean court, the bite is actually pretty good. And I did need to break it in, right? So when I first got it, I would say it was all right. You know what I mean? It wasn't biting amazingly well, but after a week or two, it did start to break in pretty nicely, and now it does have a pretty good bite. I wouldn't say it's top tier, however, but it does have a very solid bite, right? So it reminds me actually a little bit of the KD16, right? The KD16 has great traction as well, but it's just not top tier. You know what I mean? Top tier for me personally would be the LeBron 21, the Jaw ones, the 808 3s, and also the AR ones as well. Those have amazing traction. Those are top tier of this year. KD16, GT Hustle 2, still very nice, but not on that level, right? Also, if you are playing on a dusty court, it does pick up a little bit of dust, right? But it is pretty easy to wipe off. It does pick up a good amount of dust though, and it picks it up pretty quickly as well. However, it's a very easy wipe, so if you don't mind wiping, then you should be fine. But if you do mind wiping, then this probably isn't the best option. But still, if you do keep up with your wipes, you should be good to go on a dusty setting, right? So yeah, besides the breaking in part, once you do break in the GT Hustle 2 traction, it does get very good. So I had a very good time in this shoe because the traction was actually very solid, and also it doesn't really squeak that much. When I first got it, it was very silent, right? There was no squeak really at all, but once I did break it in, it did start to get a little bit louder and did start to squeak a little bit more, but still pretty silent. So that kind of sucks because I like to have a very squeaky traction. And also the KD16, same thing, not a whole lot of squeak. It did start to squeak a little bit more once I broke it in, but still not super loud like the AR1 or the AG4 and stuff like that, right? So yeah, I would say the GT Hustle 2 has very similar traction performance to the KD16, right? And now moving on to the heel to toe transition, it's very smooth in the shoe, right? So here in the heel, we have a pretty nice curved shape and also a pretty exposed midsole. It's not really caged at all, right? So it's super soft here in the heel. And then transitioning into the forefoot, we have a pretty nice curved shape and a lot of, look at that, a lot of forefoot flex and also a lot of midfoot flex, right? So for me, I don't really need torsional support all too much, but if you do need torsional support, of course, this does not have the best torsional support. Comparing that to the KD16, it's very flexible. It's a lot stiffer actually in the forefoot, but there's still nice flex here in the forefoot, but doesn't bend at all here in the midfoot because of the plate, right? This plastic plate, right? So better torsional support in the KD16s. The GT Hustle 2, obviously not as much, right? But it gives that really smooth, flexible, kind of nimble feeling, right, to the GT Hustle 2. So if you like that kind of feel, then obviously this is a great shoe. But also, like I said, if you need torsion support, this is not the best, right? And now moving on to the cushioning setup. So it just says it's full-length foam on the Nike tech specs, on the Nike website. So yeah, I'm guessing it's maybe like Cushlon, but it's a very soft foam. There is a good amount of compression here in the heel, and it's soft Also, there is a nice little bounce to it as well. And I really like this cushioning setup because it does everything very well, right? It has even better court feel than the KD16. And this foam is actually pretty soft and it feels pretty similar to the GT Hustle 2. However, it's not as good court feel, right? I mean, the KD16 is still pretty good for court feel, but I would say it's around average, right? But then the GT Hustle 2, I feel like they made the foam a little bit thinner, right? So you are lower to the ground. And I would say out of all the setups with full length zoom strobo that I've tried, this is one of the lowest feeling cushioning setups that I've felt. So yeah, if you want court feel, this has really good court feel, right? It's not amazing like comparing to like the Hardens and like the Shockwave 5, you know, like Kyrie shoe, but this is still pretty good court feel, right? So you feel low to the ground, right? But also, like I said, you have full length zoom strobo, so you have good compression and bounce right underneath your foot. And also you have that soft foam, right? Like the midsole is pretty much fully exposed, especially here in the heel. So you have good compression, you have a nice little bounce back as well. So impact protection is great. You have nice bounce, stepping comfort's good. You have really good court feel. So it's a really nice cushioning setup overall, right? Now I feel like most people will enjoy it as I have. It's just a really well-rounded cushioning setup. I really liked it. So there is the cushioning setup there. Moving on to the material. So for 170 bucks, this is a really crappy feeling material, right? It's a super cheap feeling and I really don't like it for the quality, right? However, on foot, it's actually pretty nice, right? So here in the toe box, it's just like an EM material they're saying, and it's really thin. It's a super thin material. It doesn't really stretch all too much either, so it does add a good amount of support as well. So yeah, and it conforms to my foot very well too. So I really like the material and how it feels on foot, right? But like I said, quality is really bad. It feels really cheap. And then here in the midfoot, we have kind of more like a canvas type of material. It feels more like a canvas or like a textile. And we have a swoosh that's kind of like stitched on with this synthetic material on the lateral and also on the medial side, right? And it stays extremely thin as well. And then here in the ankle area, we have very minimal padding, like super minimal. I would say there is a good amount of padding, or like an average amount of padding, like where your Achilles is, like in the back of the shoe. But for the most part, there's very minimal padding, especially like on the sides where your ankle bone is, right? And also for the tongue, there's very minimal padding as well. It's a half booty construction tongue too. So yeah, this is a very minimal feeling upper, right? And I really like that. If you want a very minimal feeling shoe and also a very minimal feeling upper, then this is amazing, right? If you want something a little bit more cozy, a little bit thicker, then this definitely is not the best option. But yeah, I feel like for performance, it's a very nice upper, right? And it's thin, it's supportive, it conforms to my foot very well. It's minimal and all that. However, like I said, if you're looking for quality, especially for 170 bucks, Nike definitely needs to improve their material quality, right? The quality of their shoes as well. I mean, it seems like this shoe's missing a midfoot shank plate, and for 170 bucks, I feel like that's a little unacceptable, you know what I mean? But anyways, like I said, on foot, it feels nice, right? And now moving on to the fit, I went up half a size, and all of Nike's shoes have been fitting a little short for me, right? So I'm going up half a size for most of my shoes, and this shoe fits me very well going up half a size, right? So for length, there is just a tiny bit of length. Look at how narrow and pointy it gets at the tip of the toe, right? So it is very narrow. It's squeezing like my pinky toe a little bit as well. So I feel like going up half a size was very good for that, right? Also here in the toe box, it is quite snug. It's not super duper snug like the LeBron 21 is, but it's still a pretty snug fit here in the toe box. So going up half a size for me was very good. If you have a really skinny foot and you want a really snug fit, then go true to size. But I feel like most people, if you still want like a pretty snug fit, but not super duper tight, then I would suggest going up half a size to like most people, right? And if you have a wide foot or you want a really roomy fit, probably go up a full size. But for me, it was a nice fit overall. And it does stay pretty narrow in the midfoot as well. So there's the fit there. Moving on to the support and lockdown. Support and lockdown was actually pretty nice. I thought this material would roll over on itself a little bit, especially for lateral containment. However, it actually was pretty good, right? My foot felt overall locked into the shoe, which is weird because like this material is super flimsy, right? And like I said, it does feel supportive because it doesn't stretch, but because it's so thin and soft, I thought it would roll over on itself just a tiny bit, but it felt pretty good, right? So we have this kind of like mud guard or toe guard with the synthetic material, and also the foam coming up acting as a sidewall here in the forefoot. And then here in the heel, we have a very soft heel counter, like internal TPU heel counter feels like. It kind of, look at that, it kind of collapses on itself. Look at how easily I'm squeezing that, right? But for the most part, my foot was not coming out of the footbed really at all. But I would say if you are a bigger dude, it probably isn't the best for support if you're looking for a very supportive shoe, like, you know, the GT Jump 2, the Zion 2, stuff like that. Even the KD16 I would say is a little bit more supportive feeling, you know what I mean? This is more of like a super nimble, very smooth feeling shoe. But if you're a guard or you're like a little bit lighter, then obviously you're not really gonna have a problem. Like, I didn't really have a huge issue, right? So there is a lateral containment. Also, lateral stability was pretty good. Like in my first impressions, like because of these kind of nubs that protrude out, it was, you know, I thought it was gonna be a little unstable. You know what I mean? Look at that. Just kind of rolls a little bit, you know what I mean? It tips over pretty easily as well, but I didn't really have any terrible issues with that either, which is of course a good thing. So lateral stability felt pretty good as well, but like lateral stability wasn't the best though, right? It wasn't super duper stable. Like I didn't roll my ankle or anything, and it didn't feel too unstable. So for the most part, it was pretty good as well. It is a mid-cut. You know, it's a mid-cut shoe, however, ankle support wasn't the best. So support and lockdown was overall adequate for me, but if you need really, really good support or a lot of support, then the GT Hustle 2 isn't the best option. There's definitely better options out there, right? And now moving on to the weight of the shoe, that is one thing that this shoe does very, very well, right? This is pretty dang light. So 11.25 ounces. Let's check the other shoe. 11.3 ounces, right? So the average weight of my shoes is around 12.5 ounces, so that's pretty light. The KD16 is actually a little bit heavier, right? 13.3 ounces, so it's 2 ounces heavier for the KD16, which is a good amount of weight. So yeah, the GT Hustle 2 feels extremely lightweight, very, very minimal. It almost feels like an extension of your foot almost, because of how soft and nimble the shoe is, right? So if you have strong feet, you know, and you don't really need that torsional support as much, then this is a great option because of how smooth it feels. Also, it's an overall pretty responsive shoe because the traction is overall pretty good. The cushion, you're low to the ground, but you have nice bounce as well, and support was adequate for me. So yeah, the shoe felt pretty damn nice when I was playing it, and I did enjoy it because it was overall very responsive, right? And now moving on to the ventilation. Not a whole lot of airflow through this EM. I mean, there is a little bit through the top of the toe box here, but for the most part, it's not the best. However, it's a pretty thin material, so it wasn't super hot for me. Now moving on to the durability, I don't think the GT Hustle 2 will last a long time, right? Especially with this flimsy upper. It feels like it'll rip, and like there might be some problems with the upper. So just be careful on that. And now moving on to the aesthetics, it definitely grew on me a little bit. I definitely feel like it looks a lot better than when I first got it. However, it's still like not my favorite as far as the design goes. So overall, I would say it looks okay. Like I give it like a 7 out of 10, right? So tell us what you guys think of the aesthetics down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, honestly, this is a very good performer. You know what I mean? I was surprised because I thought I wasn't gonna like it as much, because when I first got it, I was like, the traction's not very nice. You know, it feels a little too like unstable and stuff like that. But I started playing in it, the traction broke in very nicely. I didn't really have any issues with instability, you know, lateral stability and stuff like that. Cushion was very nice. It's one of my favorite cushioning setups as far as like a full-length Zoom Strobel setup goes, because it's so low to the ground with that Zoom Strobel unit. The upper is super minimal. I had no issues with support or anything like that. So overall, it's a very, very nice performer. And I feel like if you're a guard and if you want a very smooth and nimble feeling shoe where you can, it feels like you don't really have a shoe on, then this is a great option. Obviously, if you have like weaker tendons, like a weaker foot, and you need that torsional support, or you need a lot of support, this definitely isn't the best option. It's kind of weird because I feel like Ben Simmons was playing in this shoe, right? And he probably needs a lot of support. But anyways, I feel like if you're a bigger dude, this isn't the best option, but I feel like there are better options out there for bigger dudes. But if you're a guard, I feel like you will enjoy this shoe, right? So anyways, that about concludes my review of the Nike GT Hustle 2. I did enjoy playing in this shoe, and it'll definitely be in my rotation. Probably not super heavily. You know, there are shoes that I do like better, especially for a better price. You know, like the Jaw 1s, 808 3s, you know, there's like 110, 120 bucks. The AR1 is amazing. The AG4 for 100 bucks is better than the shoe in my personal opinion. But this is still a really nice shoe. 170 bucks is pretty dang expensive though. You know what I mean? Especially for the material quality. But if you're looking for a nice shoe with a very low to the ground feel, but still has zoom strobel, like full length zoom strobel, then this is a great option, right? But anyways, that about concludes my review. Again, if you guys do want to call up, I try to leave the link in the description box, but that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.